Have you ever encountered a hurdle with launching or growing your business? Listen, there are two things that run a business, the back end and your soft skills.
Telling you right now, if these aren't in place, you'll lose clients and you'll lose money. You don't want that? Well, you're in the right place.
Hey, I'm Dana.
Hey, I'm Sarah.
We're your hosts of the Entrepreneur Encounter, and we're going to give you a behind-the-scenes glance into our businesses, give you genuine feedback, tips and tricks, plus occasionally bring on guests that care about supporting you to grow your business organically and nurturing authentic relationships. Are you ready?
Hey listeners, Sarah here. I'm on a mission to humanize the workplace for your growing business. The way that your business runs internally affects the business as a whole, such as team retention and satisfaction of your customers. There's a really big number that is kind of scary. 30,000 people plus a year of people that leave the workforce because of the way that the business is run internally. So I want to change that. I want to ensure that your business is set up for success. So what does this look like? We'll evaluate your business and team satisfaction as a whole. We'll dive deep into the systems and the programs that you have set up for professional development for your team. And then after that, you can get ongoing support for your business and your team. And this looks like the admin side, project management, soft skills training, workplace coaching to set your team up for success so that there's not a high turnover. And again, the goal here is to elevate the success of your business. The easiest way that you can contact me is to send me a DM on Facebook or send me an email at sarah@urembertllc.com.
Welcome back to another episode of Entrepreneur Encounter. We're your hosts,
Sarah
and Dana. This episode will be diving into a vital part of entrepreneurship, and that is the importance of effective communication.
Effective communication is definitely something that we all need to hone down on, especially being entrepreneurs. We have said it before and we're saying it again. Communication is everything. Communication is the foundation to run a successful business. And today we're excited to have a guest joining us.
So welcome to the show, Jenn. We're excited to have you.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Would you like to give us a little background to who you are and what you do and the work you've done that's led you to entrepreneurship?
So I would say that my elevator pitch is that I elevate ecosystems and entrepreneurs through pitch coaching. I do a lot of work with entrepreneurial support organizations, ecosystems around the country, and primarily with entrepreneurs who are going to a pitch competition or trying to raise money through pitch competitions or grants or that kind of thing, or seeking angel investment through Series A funding. So that's what I do. I think the story of how I got here is like the long and winding road that I kind of love, that I think most of us of our generation have taken. I started my career working in politics and did a lot of campaign work and learned a million things that way. And when I didn't want the life cycle of campaigns anymore, I transferred those skills of fundraising, management, communications, volunteer support, community stakeholders. I took all of those skills and started working in the nonprofit field, which I did for, 15 years. And now I do this. So I got the opportunity to work with entrepreneurs through an ESO for about 4 years before branching off and doing my own solo practice. So I got involved with entrepreneurship, fell in love with it, absolutely fell in love with the vibe of entrepreneurs, the energy, the different ideas that I get to hear every day, and decided to go out on my own because I loved a specific part of my job, which was pitch coaching. And I received a lot of feedback that was valuable to everyone that had worked with me. And so while I, was designing programs and doing all the administrative stuff for that organization, this is what I loved. And I was like, I'm just going to double down and do this.
That's awesome. I never even heard of elevator pitch competitions.
Oh,
I was going to say the same thing. Before I had chatted with you, I didn't even know that was a thing. It makes me think of debate team and debate competitions in high school. So that was the closest thing I could relate it to. But I hate public speaking. So the thought of being on stage and pitching something sounds terrifying.
Yeah, well, no, I'll pick up that note because it is. So even before I was doing campaigning, I did speech and debate in high school and I loved it. So that was, I think, where I got my start in communications, public speaking, and then moved into script writing. So yeah, no, the speech and debate thing is totally on point. And I would say that you, Dana, are not alone in your hesitation, fear, anxiety, uncomfortability with being on stage and communicating to a large audience. That is, in fact, the majority of people fall into that category.
So along with that, why do you believe effective communication is so crucial for entrepreneurs and business owners?
I think it's obvious, but it still bears saying. So efficient and effective communications matter in all aspects of business, whether it's interpersonal relationships, whether it's communicating with your customer, but specifically in the kind of fundraising stages of scalable businesses and entrepreneurship. I feel like communication is so important because investors hear so many pitches. They talk to so many entrepreneurs day in and day out and probably have for 20 years that they don't want to listen to the whole story. They really want you to get to the point, save their time and energy, have a really great conversation, but not hear every single thing that you've ever thought of telling someone. So that kind of efficiency is really important. And then the other thing is like first impressions matter. So from an elevator pitch perspective, whether it's in an elevator pitch competition or whether it's introducing yourself at a networking event, first impressions matter. And when you have a solid kind of introduction for yourself and your business, you're much more confident walking into that space and knowing that, all right, people are going to get what I do immediately. And again, we can have a further conversation rather than me trying to re-explain everything. So that's kind of the effective side of the communications piece.
That's awesome. I understand the fact that like going to like a networking event, when people are like, what do you do? It's funny because when I first started going to networking events and people asked me that, I had no idea what to say. And I tried to like explain like everything in one go. But then as I started to gain more practice and go and people would ask me these questions, I was able to hone it down to one sentence. And if they had questions, then we would continue the conversation. So that took me like months to figure out because obviously starting out, you're not sure what you're doing, you know, and then when you put more practice into it, it becomes better with time.
Yeah, I mean, it's spot on. I think practice and refinement are pillars of what I do and how I help entrepreneurs kind of get to a place of feeling successful in their communication, especially in like short time frames. And everyone starts out by talking about the features of their company. Whether you're building software or a product or a service-based business, everybody starts from the place of, I'm going to list all the features that people are going to think are cool. And that's really not where you want to start because that's like mid-conversation. You want to be talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
But people will tune out if they're not understanding who are you serving? What problem are you solving? Why are you doing this? What value do you add? And so the practice piece and the refinement comes from doing it a lot, failing a lot, learning a lot. And I think one of the values of my business is that I help people do that faster. By working with someone like me, a pitch coach, people are able to kind of warp speed past those first couple stumbly months. And again, get those stakeholders on board much sooner and build their business much faster.
I love that. That's awesome. Now I want to do an elevator pitch contest. Dana's all I
don't want to do a contest, but I want to go through a coaching session.
Yeah, I was at one last night. A university had one last night and there were 20 different students doing elevator pitches. There were 2 minutes each and it's awesome. It's fun.
Dana, I think we should.
2 minutes.
Let's do it. I think that's our goal for next year is to start doing elevator.
If anyone can see my face right now, I will do a consulting session, but I don't want to do it on a stage. I could imagine how much helpful that would be, especially at networking events alone.
So how does effective communication impact relationships with clients and the people that you're networking with?
As you started off the show, communication is everything. So when we talk about stakeholders, we're talking about customers, community partners, investors, maybe co-founders or team members, staff. All of those people who are stakeholders need to understand within seconds to minutes what it is you're trying to get across to them. Again, whether it's staff who need to understand, here's the TLDR for Monday's memo, right? Or whether it's having a 30-second TV commercial or podcast commercial, right? So people have to understand it. And where I feel like I come in is I'm able to filter out some of the fluff that people want to start with and really get down to some prioritized messaging. And the nuance of that when we talk about stakeholders and networking and expanding business is that the prioritized messaging differs from stakeholder to stakeholder. And so one of the things that I work on is creating multiple elevator pitches or opening statements or hooks or whatever that sounds like to people for different sets of stakeholders. You're going to talk to customers very, very differently than you're going to talk to investors. So understanding that one message doesn't suit all stakeholders is a really vital lesson that, again, people tend to take a long time to learn. And once you kind of think about it, you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah. If I'm a customer, I don't want to hear your whole business plan. I want to hear how you're helping me, solving my problem, supporting me. If I'm an investor, I don't want to hear about those pieces. I want to hear your roadmap, how much you're raising. I want to know what your milestones have been. I want to know who your co-founders are. So you really need to kind of separate your communication and deliver it to whoever it is that particular audience, that particular moment.
That makes a lot of sense because I've noticed with a lot of individuals that I network with, we're talking to different people, but it's always the same thing over and over again. So it definitely makes sense to, depending on who you're talking to, it's depending on how the message comes across or what you're saying in the message to get it across. I like that.
Yeah. And I'll pick up on that because I think the other interesting thing, and I've worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs, and this is the case across the board, people who, have been in business for a year to 2 years, whatever that timeline might be for them, get really bored of hearing themselves talk. And they get bored with their own elevator pitch. And so then they deliver it without enthusiasm. They deliver it with like bleh energy. And that's what the audience hears rather than hearing that spark that you had in the first couple of months of your business. So sometimes we just refresh someone's elevator pitch or their pitch deck just to get them energized again. Yeah. It's not even about what the audience is or like if they're being effective. It's just like, all right, let's give you a little dopamine and let's actually, get excited about this in a new version.
See, it's so funny when you're talking about how to get excited when you're talking, right? So personally for me, I'm very monotone. So I sometimes feel like I come across boring, I guess you would say. Like I'm not animated as much people are, And I'm like, no, I'm really excited. And I've been asked before, are you excited about this? I am. And I know that there are individuals out there that do have a hard time doing that. Even though they are excited, they might not look it, but they are. So that's something that I know a lot of us could, me included, and everybody else that I've seen witness, like can work on that as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that kind of public speaking and delivery of the message, not just the content, are really important pieces to build up. Yeah, I've heard a ton of pitches where someone is either monotone or they're speaking so quickly that they're not breathing and you can't understand half of their words. And like, neither of those are great communication sets. So being able to learn how to adjust your tone, even if it feels uncomfortable or unnatural, is really important because it's what keeps humans engaged.
Right.
And in terms of like the speaking too fast, it's not worth it. Whatever you're trying to communicate is literally lost in translation when you are not breathing and everyone gets uncomfortable, right? So part of what you're doing is almost doing kind of a dance with the audience, like whoever you're talking to, whether it's an audience of 1 or 200, any kind of interpersonal communication needs to be a back and forth. And if you're kind of like blah, or if they ask you, it's not the greatest impression. And it's something that you can change. There's so many things in business that you can't change, right? The marketplace itself, all the things. But you have the ability to change how you deliver messages if you want to.
Attention service-based entrepreneurs, unleash the power of Pinterest with a professionally optimized business account. In case you're new here, my name is Dana, co-host of Entrepreneur Encounter, and I want to be your Pinterest setup specialist. Together, we will tailor your Pinterest presence to your brand and audience, optimize your profile with captivating visuals and descriptions, develop a strategic pinning plan to reach your target audience, and then integrate Pinterest with your other marketing channels so you can repurpose instead of working harder. Then, if you love your Pinterest account setup, I do have ongoing support packages for continued success. So if you've been wanting to unlock Pinterest potential for your wedding planning business, contact me at my website, ddvirtualmanagement.com, and we can get started. So a real life story on my end. It has been a goal that I didn't put on the front burner, but I did want to get better at speaking to people. For whatever reason, I thought that is what I needed to do. So my bookkeeper has a bookkeeping coaching Facebook group. And I was talking with her about it in one of our strategy sessions. She's like, well, why don't you come do a workshop in my group? And I was like, okay, I can maybe do that. But I feed off of people. So when we're in there, no one is talking. So then I start getting nervous and I literally did not breathe. I think I stopped breathing for a solid 3 minutes. I was just going. And then I think she could tell. So she started talking so that I could breathe. It was oh my gosh. Facebook likes to remind me of the memories. It's been over a year since I've done that. So we've come a long way since then. I think I've done another workshop in there to hey people, I know what I'm doing. I promise I'm really good at this. I attend networking events in person. So going from that experience, I start prefacing very transparent. I do better one-on-one. So if I don't sound great, book a clarity call with me and I promise we'll figure it out together. That usually is the icebreaker to make people laugh. And then I feel a little bit better. I don't know. It's awful.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's so many nuggets in there that we could talk about, but from the perspective of a smart move for people like you is to start with that, not quite vulnerability, but, kind of I'm not great at this part, so book a call with me because I'm much better one-on-one. I prefer it when people acknowledge that because it gives them a frame of reference to be like, oh, okay, well, I'm not expecting verbal greatness right now. What I'm focused on is the brain, what they can bring in terms of value. And so it breaks my heart that you experienced that, but it is super common. The not breathing, very, very common. And it's funny that you mentioned workshops because a lot of service providers like us do workshops. That's one of the parts of our sales funnel, typically, at least if you're starting out or when you're successful, people might invite you in. So I work with people who are doing workshops because their presentation of that matters. That's part of their brand and that's part of a lasting impression they have with whoever is in that room, in that audience. And so I'll work with people on their presentation. You're doing a workshop. Let me look at all of your content. Let's see if it makes sense to someone who is outside of your brain. Let's see if the order that you're telling things in is the best way for someone who's a newbie to receive that information. Let's work on kind of the delivery skills and add some tools to our toolbox so that, again, you're not panicked about giving the workshop. You should be excited about giving the workshop, right? This is an opportunity for you. So it helps you, but it also really helps the audience to kind of know where they stand, like I said, with that first admission, and then knowing that you had them in mind as you've crafted your message makes it easier for them to learn from you, which is the goal of a workshop.
Yeah. We were talking before, practice. Obviously, when we started this podcast, I was having stage fright, even though nobody was watching. But I feel like I've gotten maybe a little bit better. It's funny because when you have conversations with other business owners and you try to help them and give them advice. For example, yesterday I was having a conversation with my son. He's 9 and I'm telling him practice. And every time I have a conversation with him and I stop talking and then I think about what I just said, I'm like, I need to take that advice for myself because we're still teaching, even though, he's my kid and I'm still teaching him how to do a certain task that goes with us adults too, with business owners. It takes practice and communication takes practice. Just keep going, keep rewriting that pitch and all that.
Absolutely. I also have kiddos and it's interesting what parenting teaches us, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of self-awareness that you get when you are parenting others.
So what practical tips or advice can you offer to enhance communication skills whether they're young, youthful entrepreneurs or they've been in it for a while and maybe are trying to expand their communication styles with workshops, master classes, and so forth? Like, what can they start doing today to advance their pitch?
It's a super valuable question. And I think it runs along all the different modes of communication, not just pitching. While I specialize in pitching, that's my niche. Like I said, I help people write speeches and TED Talks and workshops and all the things, but particularly when it comes to getting prepared, let's say for your first pitch. The couple like top 5 tips that I probably give is to watch as many other pitches as you can. So get clear on what a good pitch sounds like. Get clear on what are the expected components of a pitch, because there are very distinct boxes to check that you need to cover. So by watching a lot of other people, whether that's, watching Shark Tank or elevator pitch on TV, or going on YouTube and watching other pitches, or going within kind of your local community and Googling, are there pitch events near me? A lot of universities have them. Chambers of commerce and that kind of thing often have them. So get really clear on what it is that a pitch sounds like. And then second, really, I encourage people to reflect on their goals, because their goals are likely different for every audience. We talked about that a little bit before with different stakeholders, but the pitch you might give at a university to a group of students who are not going to be your customers and are not going to be your investors, there's a different goal you have in mind, whether it's inspiring someone or engaging them for an internship or getting them so excited that they shout you out on social media, like whatever are really precise goals that you have for that occasion. And then I do something called SFE, which is write a script, get feedback on that, and edit. So again, Dana, hearkening back to the speech and debate piece. I've been a pretty natural public speaker for all of my life, which in some ways has held me back because I am very comfortable winging it. I'm comfortable walking in and being like, I got this. I built the PowerPoint. I can figure it out what I'm going to say in that moment. And what you find is that without being purposeful, and that comes from writing a script, and without being able to edit and learn from yourself, you can't actually improve, because every pitch is going to be different if you wing it. Okay. So write a script, get feedback, and edit. Practice, of course, purposeful practice, which means not just saying it to yourself, but saying it to others. Not just sitting in front of your computer and reading the script, but actually standing up, feeling the presence, feeling the clicker in your hand, understanding the layout of the room that you're going to be in. And then finally, I'd say like tip number 5 is to refine each time. By that, I mean, take time for reflection after each time you do a public speaking engagement, because when you're in the moment, your adrenaline is flowing and you're watching for interactions and you're trying to connect dots and you're thinking about how to make sure you say the next thing. And you might also have like the self-critical voice of like, why did I say that? That was a stupid thing to say. And then your brain is going in so many directions, right? So if you're able to sit down after any event and just write out like, it went well for these things. This is what I learned. I definitely talked too fast. I didn't have my deck ready and the technology failed. All of those things that you can say, okay, so each time I'm going to reflect. And that is a way for personal improvement that doesn't require anyone else. It just requires the time and effort for you to put in.
Interesting. Okay.
It's so funny that we're talking about this because I'm in the process of writing a pitch deck. So these are some great tips. I love it.
I have a networking event today. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do?
Yeah. I mean, networking is constant, right? Like you're as a business owner, and I'm sure you and your listeners think about this often, you're pretty much on stage all the time, unless you're at home.
Right.
Because like be at the grocery store and overhear someone talking about a problem that you're solving, and you can jump in and add some value to that conversation or whatever. Like we are always pitching. And then networking events are just a whole nother layer of just repetitive. Hi, my name is, what do you do? This is what I do. Okay, next person. It's fairly draining. So good luck today, Dana.
Thank
You got it. High five.
Luckily, I know a couple of people, so it's not too overwhelming, but I still hate talking about things, so that's fine.
Like we said at the beginning of this episode, is that communication is everything. It's more than your elevator pitch. Like you said, it's more than just a conversation. That's what I truly believe in, because obviously when you're communicating with somebody, you have to actively listen. So when you're listening to somebody's pitch, you have to listen. So obviously when you craft your pitch, you have to make sure that it makes sense for those people that are listening. So like having all these skills tied in together. And then after your pitch, I'm guessing, do people ask questions after the pitch competitions and stuff like that? When people, okay, so then, you have that communication part as well. So there's all these different aspects that go into communication.
Yeah, there are. I mean, every event is different, whether they have Q&A or not, but it's one of the things that I work with my clients. We have a specific session on Q&A because that is such a vital part of communication and building trust and being able to do deeper dives and still stay on brand and still make sure that your goals are being met, right? So the preparation piece, and this is what I was going to mention when you were talking about parenting, like the preparation piece is so essential. Again, tying back to like the don't wing it. If you are able to get prepared, your mind is settled, you're very clear on your message, and you're able to be much more present with your audience because you're not in your head thinking about all the things. You've done all of the pre-work. So now you can be present. You can be confident. You can answer questions better. It's just... And see, again, gone. I heard your episode on ADHD, so I am fully neurodivergent. And so things like that happen. So as a speaking coach, I also fuck up totally.
No, we totally get
I think that's a practical tip too, is give yourself grace.
Yeah, exactly. There's always going to be, even if it's the smallest mistake, you are practicing. And then when you go get up in front of people, you might stumble across that word. I know I have. And after the fact, I think that I just messed it all up because of that one little mess up on a word. But keep practicing and then everybody will do awesome. That's what I believe.
Yeah. I think that there's two versions of public speaking. One version is following a script, point by point, word by word, memorized perfectly, which can be valuable to some people. So I think different brains operate better in different kind of folders, different buckets. So there are some people who do really great memorizing it because they don't have to think about it. They just know the words, it comes out, and then they're done. There's another group of people for whom a script is devastating because if they do miss a word, right? Like you're saying, if they do miss a point, they're like, oh my God, where was I? I'm going to re-say the sentence before that. And I'm going to try to get back to exactly where I was. So those people, we tend to say, let's do more of kind of the bullet point list of what you want to talk about when this slide comes up so that it's more natural and that your stumble can be much more easily smoothed over because you're not trying to say just a specific word to get you to the next word. You're explaining a concept.
I think my brain goes for the bullet points, not memorizing stuff. I remember when I was in school trying to memorize maybe a play or something, doing those things like in middle school. That was terrifying. Dana, do you have any more questions that you would like to ask?
Well, the usual, how can our listeners and everything kind of contact you or work with you? What's the best way to get in touch with you? All of the things.
Thanks for asking. So my website, of course, which is ellapitch.com. And probably the fastest way to make a personal connection with me is through LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn pretty often. I don't post a lot, but I interact a lot. It's where I see a lot of my people being successful, past clients, and I'm like cheering them on. So LinkedIn is Jenn with 2 N's, Hensel. And I'd say those are the two best. And I would love to meet your listeners, have a discovery call, see if there are some things that we can work on together. I will say that one of the reasons I love pitch coaching and where I fell in love with it was, for me, it is the key to unlocking so much about business, about someone's business, about their operations, about their plans, about the way that they think. And so by working with people on their pitch, it actually stitches together all of these pieces of their business. It's like a practice that can get them to a place of clarity with themselves. Then in the midst of it, we're doing business consulting, we're doing advice on marketing, we're doing all the things. But through the lens of the pitch, I'm able to really dive deeper with clients on a particular point, which I totally love. So if someone is interested in a discovery call, I do workshops, virtual or in person. I do one-on-one pitch coaching. I do all the things.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jenn. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share with your fellow entrepreneurs. As always, information is in our show notes. Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode. Remember, soft skills aren't just some fluffy buzzwords that get thrown around in the corporate world. They're the key to unlocking your full potential as a professional and a human being. Don't be afraid to invest in yourself and seek out opportunities to improve your soft skills. Sarah and I have a variety of workshops, online courses, and complimentary clarity calls for you to practice in real time with us. Links are always in the show notes. And be sure to join us next time for more insights, tips, and tricks to help you succeed in your entrepreneur encounter.